Okay. Hi, everybody. Here we are. We're back for another episode of Self-Care is My Job. My name is Samantha Long. I'm the host of the show. And as you may have noticed, if you've been watching or listening, we're having conversations with just all kinds of amazing people that I've had the opportunity to get to know. And one of my friends and our guest today, her name is Turbo, and she's going to talk to you a little bit about we are going to talk about the mind stuff. We're going to talk about a few things as I've mentioned before, we're in a series on mind, body, spirit over the next couple of months, and I really want to talk about things as far as mindset and anxieties and struggles, and even a little bit about addiction and other kinds of like lesser discussed mental struggles that we all face at one point or another. But my friend Turbo is here joining us. Hello, how are
Hi.
you?
Hello. I'm
Good
so great. I'm
morning.
so happy to be here. Thank you.
Turbo is a personal freedom coach and a sovereign mentor, and she's going to talk to you a little bit about what that means. But I just, I love like the general concept of a freedom, guidance in freeing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Just like gets me all warm and fuzzy right
Mm-hmm.
away. But Turbo, tell us a little bit about you, your life, where you are, how you got, and I like to incorporate that too, like, how did you get here? Like, how did this happen, kind of thing. Tell us.
How did I get here? Well, I'd love to start by telling you where my name came from because that is how I got here. So my real name is Kaurina Crisanti. And that is not the name that people call me. That is not the name I go by. That is not the name I want to be called. And so I'll start by saying that I had a very challenging, rocky start as a child. It was a very tumultuous experience. And, the nitty gritty of that isn't necessarily important. But what was birthed out of my challenging childhood was this vindictive, mean, untrusting, angry, vengeful, dominating presence, this person. And Thanksgiving, I think it was my 19th Thanksgiving. I was sitting around in a circle and I was asking all of these people, I was like, hey, let's talk about what we're grateful for. And I was like, I'll go first. And I told them that I was grateful for color and I was grateful for friendship. And we went around the circle and everything that they said was negative, self-deprecating, toxic, just really bad. And I stood up and I left. And everyone in that circle was like, where are you going? And they were screaming things at me and it just didn't matter. I left and I went home and I was like, how did I end up with these people? How? And I took a really good look at that. I'm 19 years old and I got, like, thank God for the wisdom within me that they were the only people who could tolerate me. And I was like, oh, I need to change. So I decided to put myself on trial. I actually think I was 20. Yes. And I called it putting myself on trial. I was like, that's it. This year I'm putting myself on trial. I judged my attitude. I judged my behavior. I judged the friends I was spending time with. I judged the shows I was watching. And what I got very clear on was that I was fueling this negative experience, that I was consistently recycling all of this bad behavior. So I decided to change my life. I decided to change the things I was watching, the people I was hanging out with, the attitude that I had, the content I was consuming. I decided to change everything. And at the exact same time that I decided to change, I entered into this spiritual community. And somebody was like, you're just like a little turbo rainbow pixie. And I was like, huh, I really like that. And so I took Turbo and I put on her all of the things that I never was that I wanted to be: compassionate, open, understanding, patient, communicative, free, loving, unconditionally accepting. Patient, did I say that? Because I think that that's one of the most important ones in there.
Definitely.
And so I put all of this stuff on her and I just I just made her my talisman. I made this idea, this concept my talisman, and I moved towards her and I became her. And it took time, but I got that name when I was 21 and I'm 35. So we're 14 years strong with Turbo Rainbow. And that's really how I got here. Just choosing me. And I have to be honest that I really believe that there's this spark of awareness within all of us. And I just feel blessed that it woke up within me, because I had every reason to stay the same. I had every reason to still believe that life was against me, that I couldn't trust anyone, that being mean and manipulative would get me what I wanted. I had every reason to stay that way. So I'm actually impressed that there was just this spark of awareness within me to grow and change.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the key, right? Like that, I mean, there were so many things that you just said that spark, but at the same time, it's like that awareness.
Mm-hmm.
It's so important, but I think that we become, due to so many like outside factors, external factors that we're always focusing on or grasping for or attaching to, our self-awareness is depleted by that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, of course, the yogi in me always wants to talk about going inside, tuning in, and allowing for those moments for you to tune in for your self-awareness. So thank you for telling that story, because
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that story. We didn't get to
Mm-hmm.
talk about that.
No, we've
Um,
never talked about that.
yeah. So like it also, obviously brings up some stuff from my own childhood, like just to kind of, affirm, not that we need that, but just to affirm, like, I feel like so many people experience things like this,
Mm-hmm.
where you might very well, especially depending on like, it really has to do with that self-awareness. Like, who are you really inside? Who is your true essence? And do you feel a sense of belonging with the group of people that you have been placed with,
Mm.
right? Um, Not to say these people are good or bad, or good for you or bad for you, or whatever it is. No real reason to label or categorize or anything. It's just a matter of, can you become self-aware so that you can feel comfortable with yourself no matter who you're with?
Mm-hmm.
And you do have to start looking inside, questioning your own self. I think for me, like when you talk about that 100%, I feel like the one thing that always would happen for me with my family members specifically, I always felt like I was like an alien because I felt a lot, and I would be called sensitive, overthinking all the time. You talk too much. You're just too much, too fucking much. And
I know that
so
one.
I would quiet myself, and I would try to take on traits of the family members that seem to have more to seem to have gained their acceptance before me, right? And tried to put myself into a particular persona to gain that acceptance. So when we start that pattern, we start to put pieces of our true essence on the back burner.
Yep.
I'm talking about it like as if I'm not talking about my own life. I started to put pieces of myself on the back burner, like away on a shelf up here somewhere, like I might get to it again someday. And little did I know that absolutely happened. But I feel like there are those moments like what you were talking about, whether it's, the universe comes in and like places you with a difficult situation and a major shift in life, and it makes you focus on something new and brings something to light. Or it might very well just be like, you like what you just described, like you're having like somewhat of a spiritual awakening where
Mm.
you're like, I need to reevaluate this shit.
Mm-hmm.
And what you were talking about, all those negative, you know expressions coming out when you're all sitting there trying to be grateful for something. Yeah, it's like I realized that, and my family still does this to this day, it's like a lot of bonding over cheap energy. So we're taught to like talk about all of the hardships in life and focus on whose life is harder and talk about the struggle and put so much energy into that and like try to
Mhm.
one up each other, right? Like whose life is harder? Like, oh well.
Isn't that such a bizarre thing that happens too? Like, I
Yeah.
remember I'd say something at work and I'd be like, I'm so tired. And I'd be like, well, you're not tired. And it's like this very bizarre thing where we're
Yeah.
outsourcing our power. We're outsourcing our ability to feel good. And so, like, I'm going to one up you. And the truth is that if you start to go within, like you were saying, which is what my whole life is about now, you can insource your power. And then it isn't about winning. It isn't about comparison. It really is about completely owning who you are without question. And then we can both be tired. We can
Right.
both be the best. We can both be the greatest versions of ourselves. We can both be perfectly fine without this need to have a power struggle or gain something from the other person, because you have everything that you need within.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You nailed it. I mean, I think that so much of our worth over time, for whatever reason, like there's this mindset that we've taken on that the more that you struggle, like, that you need to struggle to succeed, first of all. So therefore, the more that you struggle, the more successful you either are or will eventually be.
Mm-hmm.
So then so that's what we want, right? We want success. Um sort of innately, almost like that's what we want. So it's like, but really what most of us, I feel, we really really want is just growth. Like, I'm not like success. When I hear the word success, it's like very much attached to what everybody else is doing a little bit.
Mm.
And then when I hear the word growth, like I can really more connect with that from within, like, okay, so like I'm not going to succeed over what somebody else is doing. I am going to try to be a little bit of a better person than I was yesterday.
Can
But
we reframe success while we're doing this?
yeah.
So
Did we
I
just?
can we just reframe? So success for me is it's your birthright. We're designed for success, and you can see that out in nature. Like, you have proof of success. If nature wasn't successful, this entire quantum experience of the wind blowing and the birds chirping and the things dying and decaying and us making babies and pushing them out and all of this crazy stuff, it would all just collapse in on itself and it would disappear.
Mm,
We are born to succeed. We are in a process of success. And I love that you also tied in growth, because I believe that we believe that success is this finite experience. Like, oh, I'm successful. And it's like, success is this flowering of growth,
mm-hmm,
this constant becoming of who you are. And as long as I am growing, I am successful.
mm-hmm.
There is no success with stagnation and this, like, clenching tight of who you think you should be. And I'm going to say this line. I love it so much. I am kind of into Marvel. And there's a line in one of the Marvel movies. Thor is like fat and sloppy, and he's gained all this weight. And he
I
ends up
know.
back in time with his mom. And she's like, this moment is a gift. And he's like, I'm not supposed to be here. I've failed. And she said, good. Everyone fails at who they should be. Now
Mm,
go and be who you are. Oh, I
mm.
have chills just saying it. And I
Oh my
loved it. It
god.
just touched me so much, because the truth is that we all put on this outfit of who we should be and what success has meant to us from the time that we birthed the definition success. But then as you start to strip away those outfits and those clothes and those identities, you really start to become who you are. Who do I want to be? How do I want to show up? How do I want to believe in myself and this world? And then the universe will reorganize around that, which is one of the most impressive things that I've ever seen, truthfully, is that when you embody who you want to be, which is an idea, I've decided I want to be this way. I don't need this society, these parents, these peers, this school, this show, whoever is telling me who I need to be. I don't have to be that. I can change my mind today, tomorrow, 5 minutes from now, whatever. And our mind will do the work. I get to say, I've decided right now that I want to be the best I can be. And your mind's like, oh, cool. I'm going to look for proof of that. You can say, I'm decided right now, I don't like who I am. And my mind's going to look for proof of that. And so if you use your mind as the tool that it is designed to do, it will do the work for you. So decide who you want to be. I want to be the greatest version of myself. I want to love myself. I want to give myself everything that I need, and my mind will reorganize my entire reality to meet me there.
Right.
And I
It's
feel like
so
that's what this
powerful.
talk is about, right? Our minds.
Yeah. Yeah. This is
Yeah.
literally exactly where we need to be right now.
Beautiful.
So like, yeah, oh my God. So you can connect that concept of, because, you said we can decide to embody that, right? And I always try to think of like my clients and like someone who's, especially given what's going on in the world right now. Like, I know that it's like sometimes daunting, and sometimes you're like, how? But how? So then what's in my head is like, okay, so how do you just embody the overall vision of who you want to be,
Mm,
right? But you nailed it. It's you decide. You
mhm,
are in control. You're in 100% control. The way that you're in control is exactly what you said. You have the ability to decide to flip your mindset in a
mhm.
certain direction, and then your brain, based on what it's meant to do, will look for proof will look to prove that. Will look for
Yes.
things throughout your day to prove that. It is the same way that a gratitude practice works. Like,
Yes.
people are always like, "Oh, well, yeah, I guess it's nice to at the end of the day focus on what went well that day." Da-da-da. But that's not all it is. You're training your brain to look for proof that
Yes.
life is wonderful,
Mhm,
because you're pointing out to yourself the things that are wonderful in your life. If we, going back to what we started our conversation with, if we spend so much energy and time discussing our struggles and one-upping each other and talking about whose life is harder, you are building that muscle. You are
mhm.
building that muscle in your brain to look for all the shit. We don't want to focus on all the shit. Or we can be in that. We can own that too. That shit and those hardships and those anxieties and fears and struggles, those are a part of you too, but it's not where you want to live.
Yeah.
And it's not where you want to stay. You want to grow, so we have to embody in that way. I love that you use that word. um and I've also been having a lot of conversations with people surrounding the concept of should lately. Like,
Mm.
as soon as that comes in to your language, that
It's
does
followed
it
by
feel good?
anxiety.
Does
It's
it feel
followed by
good in your
anxiety.
body?
No.
Yeah, you were saying.
Oh, just should. I'm just piggybacking off of
Yeah,
what you
okay.
said and agreeing with you that that anxiety follows the word should.
Yes.
I should do this, and then I feel anxiety. I should clean my dishes. Whoop, now I feel anxiety. What if I wanted to clean my dishes or I didn't want to clean my dishes? Both of those are valid. I
Right.
want to. Oh, good. Well, then do it. I don't want to. Okay, great. Don't.
Mhm.
The seeing the pile of dishes does not incite anxiety in me. It incites a desire for them to disappear or a desire to continue sitting on the couch. Either way, those are my choices. But the moment I put should in, it's like, fuck, I don't want to do this. This has become an obligation. Now I think people are judging me because of this pile of dishes. And that's just a base level example of
Right.
these mindset shifts with shoulds and have tos and can'ts, you know?
That's exactly what I was going to say. The shit, the should or the have to. And so, in other words, like, just to piggyback on that example, even though it is like, it's simplifying it, right? But at the same time, you can apply it to anything. Now you've attached anxiety to that act, which is why you might very well feel resistance to doing anything about it now, because you've
Mm-hmm.
attached that feeling to it, as opposed to it would make me feel really good if my house was cleaner. It
Hmm.
would reduce, it would make me feel like I can move on to bigger projects.
Well, have you
Um,
considered too that it's not sovereign? So should isn't sovereign. Should is a pressure from outside of you.
mhm,
You should do this. Who says? I don't know, but somebody's saying it. But I
mhm,
want to. I get to. I don't want to. Those are all preferences. Those are all personal. Those are all from you, embodied choices. Should is not an embodied choice. It's just this weird shroud of energy. So I'm always asking myself, if should comes in, because we're conditioned to say should, I'm like, oh, I just should it on myself. What do I want? Oh, I don't want this. Okay. And then I get to reframe it, because if I'm
mm,
not reframing things, then I'm trapped. Like we do have that opportunity to constantly be reframing who we are and what choices we make and how we want to move through this world. I really like that you said that.
ugh, it's so important because like you said, we're literally conditioned to decide what we do based on what everybody else has, pointed us in a certain direction, or we're trying to compare ourselves to what somebody else is doing, so we should do it too. I just did it, as a personal story. I just did it for a good 4 or 5 months. I was doing it because just like anything else, when you go through a particularly stressful time, I think what happens, and we can get into this a little bit too. So somebody really close to me in my life suffered a relapse in his addiction. So I was dealing with that in my life, and it was causing me stress. And I feel like when I go into more stressful seasons of life, that's when those tendencies tend to come back in. So that awareness is so important that we talked about in the beginning of our conversation, because it's the only way that we can do exactly what you just said. The tendency comes in to say, whether it's one thing or whether it's the shoulding. I was just shoulding myself. And then wait,
Mm-hmm.
what do I want? That
Yeah.
pause and taking inventory and reevaluating is only possible if we become self-aware.
Mm-hmm.
And if we actually, again, the yogi in me wants to promote the idea of getting used to taking those pauses, whether that's through meditation, breath, yoga, like in or anything, so many things, right? That you
Mm-hmm.
can incorporate that as and build that muscle of being okay taking that pause.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you can take that pause and be somewhat a little bit more comfortable in that stillness, you have the ability to check yourself, to take inventory and say, wait. I'm shitting myself when
Yes.
really I need to ask myself, what do I want?
Yes.
Um,
And you have the ability to respond instead of react.
yes.
Without that pause, I'm no one but my default mode, which is my 5, 10-year-old self throwing a temper tantrum, reacting from my abandonment wounds, believing that I'm not valid. And so I'm yelling because I want to be heard. I'm heard in my silence. And that took a lot of patience to cultivate. Oh, watch how I say nothing, and that is heard louder than the words I just screamed. So the pause I really believe in. And I love that you also talked about breath work or meditation or yoga. I think that it's so crucial that we have these emotional regulation techniques, because we're not taught this, and so they seem really woo and really silly, and people are like, oh, I don't need that. And it's like, actually, that is the number one thing you need in order to function as an adult in this world. You need to find emotional regulation techniques that work for you,
Mm-hmm.
so that you can continue to behave in a way that is productive, that is successful, that is growth permitting, that is personal develop, like I don't know how to say personal development without botching the word, but like what you're trying to do is create a safe container for growth. You're trying
Mm-hmm.
to create a safe container for you to move through this world from a place of like groundedness, where you can make decisions that are best for you and everyone. And you can't do that if you're not in that pause.
Yeah.
You're just reacting. And so you're bringing up addiction. It's like whoever's inside of the addiction is only behaving from the reaction. They're only behaving from that place of no pause, of that default mode. I'm going to drink or do drugs or whatever it is that they're doing. And all of a sudden they're gone. You're not even talking to them. So you have to be in your response. Your response is the safe, grounded container of this is my boundary. I'm not available for this. I've seen this before. Let's gather a bunch of people and have, what are those things called?
Intervention.
An intervention, whatever it is. Like
I'm like, I got it. I got it.
If I'm reacting, I can't show up. If I'm in a response, I can show up properly. Even if I'm triggered, even if I'm overwhelmed, even if my stomach's fallen through the floor, I know that I can do those self-regulating emotional practices and I can get back to base level.
Yeah.
And mine, I don't do meditation as much as I do breath work and tapping. Those are my two main, because
I was just going to ask you, like, what works for you? Yeah.
So if I could just throw Josh Trent in here, he came up with this amazing breathwork course. I think you actually were like following, you were like, let me know how that was.
Yep.
It is a program that you can download on your phone. And it is a 21-day challenge, but you have it forever. And there's breathwork courses for fighting with your spouse, for having anxiety, for blah, blah, blah work, but they're all about 20 minutes long. But he has two that are just like introduction breathwork things, and they're only 7 minutes long, and they are amazing. And I never realized until I was doing breath work how absolutely instrumental it is in helping you make a choice. Instead of letting your default choices rule you, you can be like, oh, I've dropped back into my body. Here's the deal with breath work. The moment you close your eyes, your nervous system knows without a shadow of a doubt that it is safe, because there's nothing chasing you. There's no lion chasing you. So your nervous system is like, oh, I can calm down. So breath work really is all about just telling your nervous system that you are safe, that this fight that you're having isn't going to kill you. You're not going to die. This person in front of you isn't, as dangerous as your nervous system is telling you. So breath work for me is just like absolutely number one place to go. But I also love tapping. I don't know if you do tapping.
I have very little experience with tapping. So do tell, because
tapping for me, I thought it looked very strange, and I made fun of it for a really long time. I thought it was super woo. I put it on the woo shelf. It can take me from the highest, I'm going to flip out, I feel like I've just flooded, I have no idea who I am anymore, I'm taking a timeout, 3 minutes of tapping. And so there's lots of different ways to do it. Generally you're tapping meridian points on your body.
Right.
And then there's things that you say, like, I'm feeling anxiety. Even though I'm feeling anxiety, I absolutely love myself. I completely accept myself for who I am. Even though I'm feeling anxiety, I absolutely know that I'm safe in my body. So that's a basic run through. And
is tapping like the background and purpose was that do you know if it was developed based on regulating the nervous system specifically?
I'm pretty sure that it was.
With the meridians?
To be honest, I didn't look into it. I just found that it worked for me. And then I shifted it.
The best way. Like, give it a try. I always talk about that. It's like all these different self-care techniques and types that are going to support different types of wellness, whether it's your mental, your physical, your emotional, your spiritual wellness. Just try one. Yes. Like, let's not overthink this. We can do an inventory of what we feel we need most, but like as far as category, is it more physical tension for you? Is it more mental or emotional tension? You can most people can at least take inventory of that, but then it's like, just try something. It's like a chicken and the egg thing, because once you get you take action, You're sending a message to your brain that you're worthy of that support, of
Yeah.
that of and even if it's just of setting the time and space aside that you've made to make it happen. Like
Yes.
you're creating and embodying the idea of self-worth and self-love
And
by
trust,
just putting
inner
your
trust.
yes.
My being trusts that I will take care of me every
Mhm.
time I take this extra 3 minutes. And so I just wanted to finish with tapping
Sorry,
because,
yeah.
oh, don't be sorry. Like you and I could dialogue like
Oh
this
yeah.
for a long time. So what I love about tapping that I think it is fundamentally different from everything else is that it can be done in 3 minutes and you can do it in front of people and they won't even know. So one of the places you can tap is right here. And
Mm.
I've like had my hands under the table at a dinner and I'm like, ooh, I hate these people. They are driving me nuts. This conversation sucks. The food is terrible. I don't want to be here. And instead of all of that, I'll start tapping and I'll be like, even though I am having the most terrible time, I know that I'm safe in my body. I know that I'm capable. I know that the time will pass. I know that very soon I will be going home. And so I'm tapping. When you tap, you're telling your nervous system again that you're not being chased by a bear. You
Yeah.
cannot tap while you're being chased by a bear. So you're automatically telling your nervous system that you're good.
Yeah.
And so that very basic run through, even though I'm feeling anxiety, I absolutely love and completely love and accept myself. That doesn't work for me, even though it works for others. I think it's too basic. So I'll say something like, even though I am so angry with my son and I believe that he's not respecting me, I know that that's not true. I know that he's 6 years old. I know that he doesn't want to do school. And to be honest, neither do I. And even though I don't want to do this, I absolutely know that it is benefiting my life. It is benefiting his life. And that I am capable of teaching my son how to read and how to write without flipping out, without making him feel small, and without shrinking into the person that I don't want to be. So doing something a little bit deeper, that stretches me into an affirmation.
Yeah.
And it takes one run through for my body to be like, oh, that's right. I am not my anger. I am not my fear. I am not this anxiety. I am bigger than this. And so
Mm.
I just wanted to say that before we move on, because some people are not going to look into this. They might just steal this from me right here. It's
That's a
just
really
basic.
good point. Yes.
Yeah, it's just basic. It's so basic. It's so easy. It takes 3 minutes. You can do it at the table, at a restaurant. You can do it anywhere.
That's where you
I,
got me. I'm like, when you're in a room, when you're somewhere you don't want to be, with
yeah.
surrounded by people you might not want to be with, this is a good, and I wrote down some language while you were saying that. And I just love the concept in general of even though,
Mm-hmm,
because it validates everything you're feeling. So
mm-hmm,
even though blah blah blah, the blah 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 is valid. It's real. You're acknowledging it, but by saying, even though this and this, I know. So then
mm-hmm.
you're not associating and embodying whatever it is that anxiety, fear, tension is the way that you're being triggered. But I know this.
Yeah,
Like
you know
the
the truth.
language is so important, I
Yes.
think. It's so
Yes.
important. It's like, even though is almost like the same thing as like I know a lot of us get into a trap with comparing ourselves, like we were already talking about, comparing ourselves either to what we see somebody else is doing and doing the shoulding, or just butting up against what we were maybe indirectly taught as children about what it we're supposed to be like.
Mm,
So when you're there and you're feeling not enough, you're in that space. Again, it's like, even though I feel this way, I know. So it's like, it's the same thing as saying, I know that I feel like I should be this way, but I know that I am this way, and that
Mhm.
maybe even further with the language, it's like, I'm just not there yet. Like,
Mhm.
I haven't, I haven't achieved this yet. I haven't embodied this yet. I haven't, not that I'm all about grabbing things, but you know what I'm saying. So language is so important. So that's what
I
kind of
love that
stood
it's
out.
reprogramming your mind too.
Yeah.
Like, we have this in the woo community, as I like to call it. We have this like write out affirmations, and we're like, oh, that's so woo. And it's like, actually, what you're doing is reprogramming your neural pathways to do what you want.
Yes.
So earlier we were talking about claiming it and deciding that you're going to change your life. That comes with
Yeah.
practice. When I want to change my life, I don't just decide I want to change my life. I decide, and then I write out affirmations, and I
Mhm.
put them in places where I absolutely cannot ignore them, which is directly in front of my toilet or on my bathroom mirror. And they change maybe quarterly. And then I also have a rule, because our minds are really good at ignoring stuff. We're like, oh, I've seen it, I'm going to ignore it. So I've made a rule that every time I see it, I need to say it. And so then I see it, I say it, my mind hears my voice say it
Mhm.
over and over and over and over again until it's completely integrated. And then I remove those and I put up something else.
Yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
think that it it just came to me, I want to say a couple of years ago, uh the affirmation of the answer will present itself, or
Mm,
the answer is already inside of me, and it was almost like this really natural, like, just incorporation of affirmations and mantras into my life because of that one uh popped into my head one day, and I had it on repeat for so long, and my life changed.
mm-hmm.
We're talking about self trust.
Mm-hmm.
There is so much power in affirming to yourself over and over again, the answer will present itself, or the answer is already inside of me.
Mm,
In other words, I do not need to look. What is the first thing we do when we're anxious and we're freaking out about something, especially if it has to do with our kids, or it has to do with, our job or whatever, or our health? We're Googling shit. We're looking, you know what
yeah.
I mean? Or you got to call your friend up and ask for their opinion. 72 other people need to validate what you already kind of know to be true, but you don't trust yourself to just go with it. The
Mm-hmm.
other thing is the need for instant gratification. So, not being willing to wait for the answer. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Like, it could be something as big as I want to create some, enact some kind of major change in my life, like starting a business, or incorporating a self-care routine that's going to be very regular. Or it could be, oh, my plans got fucked up for this weekend for going skiing, and now I don't really know what I'm going to be doing, and now I'm like having anxieties because I need a plan. I need a plan like right now. It could be small or big. What if you could incorporate something that programs your mind to know that the answer will present itself?
mm,
You don't have to have it right now. So much anxiety can leave the room.
yes. And something that's coming through for me right now as you're talking is that the instant gratification is actually inside the pause.
Yeah.
So we believe that the instant gratification is this external experience, but actually, if you just pause, you can give yourself exactly what you need right away.
You
And
think that
then,
you need all the answers, but
yes,
that's not
yes,
actually what we
what
need.
you want is to feel better. You want to
Right,
feel
right.
grounded.
We need to actually be able to let go of the idea that we feel like we need all the answers.
Yes,
We don't. We actually don't. You're already enough as you are.
yes,
If your shit blows up, you're still enough. You
yep,
don't so
yep.
fucking what? It's just like, so yeah, it is, and it's all in the programming. So you start to incorporate little by little pieces of it, whether it's the language or the tapping, and so actually, and it's wonder because you were talking about how those tapping exercises are short, 7 minutes. I always talk about the concept of a micro practice, because I think so many of us have this, overwhelming sensation of all or nothing. Like I can't,
Yes.
like, and my taking care of myself is going to take so much time and so much energy. Pick something that can be a micro practice for you. Why meditation is also, yes, can be daunting for people to take on, but only when you're making it a much bigger deal than it needs to be. Only
Yes.
when you're trying to perfect it and trying to execute
Mhm.
perfectly is it a daunting thing to take on, like anything else would be for, when you're beginning to incorporate something. But something that's 5 to 7 to 10 minutes,
Yes.
you can carve it out. I have a mom circle that I brought back and started having, so we had an hour session the other couple weeks ago. And I just left everybody with like, you were able to carve out an hour to come sit with me, a stranger, tonight. You were able to do that somehow. So that means that tomorrow or the next day after that, you could find a way to ask yourself, what needs to happen so that I can have 10 minutes
Mhm.
to do this one thing.
Mhm.
And even if it doesn't happen every day, again, it doesn't have to be a perfect approach. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing pressure inducing concept. Just yes, incorporating it as a micro practice instead of placing this immense pressure on yourself to have a whole new life tomorrow. Like
Yeah.
it's just not realistic,
But also how quickly it ramps up. So I don't call it a micro practice, but it's exactly the same. I love what you're saying. I just call it a tiny slice of pie. If your day is this whole pie, take out a tiny sliver slice and give it to you.
Mm,
And over time, you'll build your own self-care pie. And you'll realize very quickly how easy it is to give that to you and how good it feels and how necessary. Like your show is called Self Care is My Job.
mhm.
That is fucking true. There
My
is
job, it's your
no other
job.
job more important in this world than taking care of yourself. And if you're outsourcing all of that fucking like work, all of this, oh man, well, I'm going to do this for them and I'm going to empty all of my cup onto this. And then I'm going to need I need something from you. I need you to do this because I'm empty. They're first of all never going to do a good enough job. It's never going to happen. No one is ever going to do a better job than you at taking care of yourself. And then also the idea, like you were saying, it's all or nothing. Babe, it was always about you. It was always about you. You're alive. You're here. You're here for the long haul. So give yourself a 5, 10, 15-minute slice of you. Discover what you like and what you don't, and really embody your preferences. Like we're so constantly judging our preferences. Oh, I should like this and I shouldn't like that. And I'm going to try and like this person because blah, blah, blah. And it's like, there's millions and millions and millions of people on this planet. You're allowed to experience your preferences, especially within your self-care. Like you are really into yoga. I have a very hard time getting myself onto a mat,
Everybody needs their own I always say,
right?
is it pertaining to self-care, it's like, it doesn't matter what it is, it matters what it does for you.
Yes.
When you're
Yes.
done with that, either 10 minutes or hour, whatever, did it bring you closer to
Mhm.
who you were, to who you've always been? Did it physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually help you grow?
Did it
Do
fill your cup?
did you relieve an emotional or physical tension? Like, done. Then you
Mhm.
then you have you've achieved,
Mhm.
self-care. You can tick it off your pie list for the day, you
Mhm.
know?
And when you start doing it and seeing how easy it is, you can start to squeeze in another one and prioritize it. Like I'll give a for instance, I was in this really toxic relationship for a really long time and I kept trying to save this person and fix them and I completely abandoned myself. So when I got back to my self-care practice, I was fucking blown away, like legitimately floored. I was like, "Oh my God, I haven't done this for me in 5 years."
Mhm.
Just this, just this I haven't done. And then
Mhm.
I was like, oh, and I just haven't done that and that and that. And it turned out that I had just stopped caring for myself. And
Mhm.
so by just giving yourself that 10-minute slice, you'll start to see, one, where you really want to care for yourself, and two, how quickly it starts to really create this inner sense of fortification. Like, I deserve this time. I'm worthy of this time. And in fact, I can't give anybody anything of value until I give me this time.
Yeah.
So necessary.
I think that it's such a good example. My example, like, similar to that, um, would be like, okay, so when I abruptly left the corporate world, I was laid off at 8 months pregnant with my daughter, which is what, you know, what was the beginning of my process to start incorporating more self-care into my life, because it was a really difficult time. So the first thing I did was incorporate more yoga. This was before I became a teacher. Definitely threw myself back into my yoga practice, like, full force. Like, I knew I needed it for, like, mostly mental. Whereas I started practicing yoga probably 12 years ago for my physical health, which most people would come to yoga for the physical, right? But having, I would say maybe 8 months into really fully getting back into it and coming back into my body because of the physical practice, you, like you said, you incorporate that type of self-care, which leads to an enhancement of your self-worth and
Mm,
self-trust. Now you can become aware of how other areas of your life could use tweaks to
mhm.
even enhance your growth and your wellness
Yes.
overall. For me, it was my relationship with food. um I was never a dieter, thankfully. Like, like, I think I'm so anti-rules that I could never diet, like, actually, like, stick to something. I wouldn't even attempt it. I would be like, "No, I don't fucking diet. Thank you." But that didn't help the relationship I had with food, which was for comfort, 100%. So, but we're of just like anybody else, right? There are certain types of foods that you're going to be more sensitive to. You're going to become more aware of how eating and certain types of food are affecting your body, and care and know that
Yes.
you don't deserve that. Do
Yes.
I want to feel this way? Do I want to have an extra 4 layers of bloat in my belly because I am obsessed with cheese? Quote, "obsessed with cheese." It's like, no, like, you don't. So now you have that extra, um it's available to you to become aware and then feel worthy of making that
Mm,
change, so that you don't have to feel like, again, it's an outside force coming in telling you you should do something. You know inside of you that you deserve
yes.
to feel better.
And you're speaking my
It's
language right now, because food to me is the addiction.
Yeah.
That's my addiction to food, this comfort. And also, the instant gratification was immediate. Like, when I cut out sugar, I removed indigestion, I removed, like, lethargy. It's like instant gratification doesn't have to be about looks, and really it never was. It's about feeling. We're so attracted to how we look, and we're chasing this idea, but the truth is, when you eat right, you feel good
Mm,
right away.
yeah.
Right away. So I really relate to everything that you're saying right
Yeah,
now.
because we all look for, and this is a good segue into probably our last topic, but an important one, of not only, so with dieting and stuff like that, it's like a band-aid. It's more of a band-aid. Now, not to say that people haven't taken on a diet plan, whether it's keto or whatever it is that's the thing currently, right? Not to say that people haven't had success, but I do, I would question whether or not you feel well from a whole self perspective, and whether or not that's important to you is your own individual thing. But what I think that a lot of diets are band-aids for more whole, more deep rooted things that can be addressed. and we attach ourselves to, a number on a scale, for example, or how we look physically when we look in the mirror, as opposed to how we feel as a whole. Like, yeah, like, are you exhausted?
Mm,
Do you deserve to have energy? How could you grow as an individual if you had more clarity, mental clarity? Could you make an adjustment from really from a more whole perspective? Now, so, and then stress, we could talk about stress and how you might look for a band-aid in either smoking or alcohol as a fix for your stress. Um, and then it
mm.
becomes your pattern, it becomes your go-to, your addiction. And then there's always, there's so many layers we can go into with that. Um, we talk, and again, just like you keep saying, oh, where it's woo woo to discuss things from a more holistic, natural, fundamental perspective. Like, how do I get to the root cause of my discomfort
Mm.
and my potential lack of wellness, as opposed to reach out and find a band-aid for it that's going to be temporary, that's going to make me feel real good, give me instant gratification, but I still have that same thing that I'm butting up against every time.
So I've got an entire section of my program dedicated to this. And it's essentially reparenting. One, observing that you have an inner child that's always there. It's on default. People think that doing inner child work is like, oh, I'm going to do that this week and I'm going to go back to my life. And it's like,
No.
nope. Actually, your inner child is the default age that you were when shit started to get real and you froze and you started leaning into coping mechanisms, right? Okay, so my coping mechanisms are eating cake and eating sugar and smoking cigarettes and maybe drinking wine. Well, what are my coping mechanisms to handling stress? And can you observe your coping mechanisms and instead create self-soothing practices, which are self-care? Like, oh, I'm noticing that when I am feeling really sad, I want to eat donuts. What am I going to eat instead that's sweet?
Mm.
Oh, I'm noticing when I'm really angry, I want to freak out at the people in front of me and project all of my anger. I want to make them feel small. What do I need in that moment? I need to go into my room because I'm feeling small. I need to do breath work. I need to expand who I am to meet my little kid where she's at.
Mm-hmm.
So coping mechanisms are addictions. That's what they are. And they just snowball into deeper addictions based on what they are. And then there's self-soothing practices, which essentially support your coping mechanisms and replace them. What do I use to feel better as the little girl inside of me? And what should I use to feel better as the parent that's parenting the little girl inside of me? There's no rite of passage in this society of going from a little girl to a woman or a little boy to a man. And you don't realize that your age of rebellion against your parents is actually a time for you to step into parenting yourself. Yes, fuck my parents. They can't tell me what to do. Guess what, though? If you're not telling you what to do, you're going to fall face first into a pile of shit, like a
Mm.
life that you don't want. And so you have to relearn, reorganize. I mean, you said something that I say all the time, which is take inventory. We're
Mm-hmm.
so afraid to take inventory. We claim who we are and then we defend it to the last drop. And it's like, bitch, have you considered that that's not who you are?
Mm-hmm.
That is an identity that you created to protect yourself, to posture, to feel better, to feel powerful. Who you really are is this infinite expression of the divine, this infinite intelligence that's moving through you all the time. So it's time to reparent. It's time to take inventory. Look at your behavior and your thoughts with love and compassion so that you can change them and reorganize. I
Yeah.
love that you brought that up because I just was so lit up when you said that. That's a big part of what I teach people.
Yeah. It's like, it's the unlearning. We learn
Mm,
patterns and we learn tendencies and things like that. And then it's just part of the journey. Like, I think for a while, I judged myself for in a way for having absorbed a lot of the
Mm,
negativity and having like we said before, having made myself smaller, having quieted myself,
mm,
having reduced myself and put pieces of myself away for so long. And I, like, was a little angry at myself for doing that for a while. And then, but now I completely like embrace the concept of like, these are the patterns we learn. And a part of every single person's journey, I truly believe, is unlearning them
mhm,
and then coming to a place where you probably were at some point before um voices of authority in your life might have painted for you the picture of what you're supposed to be and what you should be,
mhm,
but you were already, period. Like, you were already, and you still are. So that's the inner child, exactly what
mhm.
it is. The inner child is begging so many of us to just reparent them. Exactly. I
To
mean,
be
it's so weird
heard.
that you're used that concept just came up. I think I was like talking with like another coach, and I hadn't actually never heard that term before, reparenting, but it was just the other day. So I
Mhm.
love that you're saying it because these little things go off. Like, that's what it is. That's
That is
it.
what it is. Yes.
It's craziness. You
And then
don't
it
have
helps
to
to
be a
heal your
parent to
relationship.
reparent, and you don't have to, so it's like that concept, that word. It doesn't mean just because we're both moms, like, we're not saying like you need a mom, or some outside factor in the matter, or like some kind of skill to it. There's no skill because you already know. Most of us already know the things if you really were able and willing to take inventory. I know
Mm.
it can be scary. A lot of us just don't, even with journaling. I talk about journaling with people all the time because it's just one of my favorite
Oh,
forms of
yeah.
self-care.
I think it's necessary, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was shocked to learn in my process over the last year or so how many people are resistant to it. And I just fully believe that it is a fear of unearthing things. It's
Mhm.
a fear of what will come out. And that's why people resist. I think that, yes, there are people who resist talk therapy for the stigma of it, unfortunately, is still there. I think that slowly, thankfully, it's starting to evolve out of that, and become more normalized. But I think there are still people who resist talk therapy, again, because they're just really scared of what's going to come out of their mouths.
Mm.
And it's like, I always say this to like one of my first coaches that I ever worked with, like, one of the most meaningful things she ever said to me was, once you shine a light on those demons, they start to scurry real friggin' fast. And I don't think any more words have been more true because it seems so daunting. And you're like, especially if you're in a place where you are disconnected, like mind, body, and spirit, and you feel like you don't even know what you need.
Mm.
You're like, I don't even, how do I fix this? And you're in that space. It's very hard to see the forest through the trees 100%. Um, and it feels like you're just going to be wading through it.
Oh, yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. You could allow one sentence to drop from your lips or drop from your brain and dump it onto a piece of paper. And it could just
Change your
plant a
life.
seed in the
Yeah.
back of your head, and it could change everything. The
Yes,
light
it
goes
is.
on. Bing.
Mhm.
Why? Because you're aware now.
Mhm.
You've shined a light on that. You're woke.
Well, we're always so often running from our pain, right? These coping mechanisms that we have, our resistance to doing things, it's because we don't want to experience pain. Our bodies are designed to be like, red alert, pain, pain, pain. But I think what I really try to teach and embody is that emotional intelligence is holding a container
Mm.
for your pain. And instead of running from your pain, knowing and trusting that you're not going to die and that there's all of this information inside of this pain. And if you don't run from it and you face it head on, even if it's trauma from 10 years ago, even if it's getting raped, which has happened to me, even if it's your kid dying, all of these things, when you turn and you face them, you actually are transformed. You actually grow, you bloom, you change. These things that are so scary for us to look at, the moment we look at them, like
Mhm.
you said, they scurry. I don't see them running as much as I see them really just like illuminating
Mhm.
and giving us the information we need to become who we're meant to be in each moment. Like if we're always becoming, and we decide to stop running from our pain, and we sit with it and we listen, and we know that we're strong enough, I'm capable. If I've had an entire life of suffering and pain, then I already have the proof that I need to know that I'm capable of holding myself right now. Okay, I'm feeling sad. What am I really sad about? Oh, I'm sad about something that happened 2 years ago because I decided to push it down and not acknowledge it. Let's acknowledge it. Let's journal, like you're saying. Why am I sad? And writing it all out and reading it and crying. And all of a sudden, 45 minutes later, I've integrated it. I've pulled it out, and now I'm integrating it. Instead of pushing it down and hiding it and storing it somewhere, I'm actually using it for good. I'm turning it into the compost I need to have a beautiful life.
Mhm.
So I really relate to what you're saying, because we so often run from our pain. And the truth is, our pain is just as beautiful as our joy.
Yeah, it's a
It's
part
just,
of us.
yes.
It's not again, it's all the stuff we're taught. We're taught pain, discomfort, all of that is bad. And pleasure and fun and lightness is good. And that's it, right? So then we go through life and we run from everything we were told was bad.
Mhm.
It might, but again, it's like viewing it from a much larger perspective of how you can grow from it. And it's not
Mhm.
like the other thing, like to sort of go further on that. It's not like those things will never come up for you again. And now you are cured of
Yeah.
that particular trigger and you can go on through the rest of your life and that thought will never enter your head again. Of course, that's not the case. But 100% you will have an easier time moving through that moment of feeling triggered the next time and the next time after
Mhm.
that. Um, again, because you're using the information that to help you grow so that you can deal with those things that are related to that particular topic when they come up for you. You're using that information that you gained from that experience to um make little shifts in your life so
Mm.
that you don't have to feel as affected when those things come up anymore. You
Mhm.
can actually move through them and not let them bring you potentially to your knees where
Mm.
you could lose days over an episode. And it's like we're here to live. We're not
Mhm.
I'm not here to lose days. I'm here to live my damn life. So
Mhm.
if it's going to allow me to be like, and I'm done. And I'm gonna
Yeah.
keep living now, right? I will get, I give myself the time, I think it's important to state that you give yourself the time that you need for that process to unfurl. So, and rest, lots of rest and like
Mm.
sit the fuck down. Like,
Oh, I love rest.
like,
It's
oh
my
my
favorite
God.
now.
I know.
Remember
We're
when
gonna
we
need a rest after this conversation. But anyway, so to bring it on home, you have a workshop that you're working on right now to help people quit smoking,
mm,
which when you posted that, I was like, "Oh my God." The reason is because like I said, I'm in a process right now where with my own life, with I'm dealing with addiction, not for myself, but somebody very close to me and their relapse in their addiction, which affects everyone around you. Your
yes.
addiction affects everyone around you, and it always will. And so it's like a perfect example of what we were just saying of like actually trying to learn from the experience you're in, because a lot of this stuff that so many of us deal with in our lives, it doesn't go away. It doesn't just go away. So
Mhm.
wouldn't it be useful to really grow from it? So, and one of the things that I've been kind of almost learning for the first time, and really, I mean, I'll admit, it took me a long time to properly view addiction as a mental health issue
Mm.
because I grew up with it and there was a different stigma around it when I was younger. So I have been in the process of really trying to shift now that we know more, right?
Mhm.
Um, so I don't know if that resonates for you or if it's in some way incorporated to like what you're working on with people.
Well, what's really interesting about what you said is that I know that addiction is a mental health issue for all of us because of that inner child work, because of the coping mechanisms and the self-soothing and the reparenting and the unlearning and all of that.
Yes.
But smoking in our particular society is very passive, and it's
Yeah.
very acceptable,
Yeah.
and it's very easy, and it's the issues that come with smoking are invisible to the naked eye, and it ramps up over time. So really this course, and it's not, I would not call it a course, I would call it a workshop. It was birthed out of my very best friend who wants to quit smoking, and we were having this very beautiful ceremony, and in the middle of the ceremony he was like, I need to go smoke a cigarette. And I was like,
You're like, no.
and I have smoked, I've been a smoker, I get it, I'm so all about it. But I was like, okay, right now I want you to close your eyes. And I led him through this whole practice, this whole experience. And at the end of it, I was like, do you want to smoke a cigarette now? And he said, no, I want to keep going. And then at the end of it, he was like, that was really momentous. I want you to help me quit smoking. I'm just not fully ready yet. And I said, can you be ready February 1st? And he said, yes. And I said, I think I'm going to create an opportunity for other people to join. And he was like, that's an amazing idea. So I'm really just creating that space. And each week we're going to focus on something different. You know, there's an emotional experience to smoking, there's a spiritual, there's a mental, and there's a physical. It's an energetic
Completely.
experience of
Yep.
smoking. And I'm also funny, and I think smoking is funny. So I'm going to bring a lot of comedy into it just to create this transparent, authentic experience of what it means to smoke. Like removing the habit from your life, it feels like a challenge when you put it out there. Oh, quitting smoking's out there, it's over there, it's in the future, it's somewhere else. Guess what? Quitting smoking's in here. Literally, physically, metaphysically, emotionally, mentally, and right here inside your lungs.
Mm.
Like there's so much going on
Mm-hmm.
when you smoke.
It's all
And so I just really
connected.
wanted to create I wanted to create a platform for that, which is kind of outside of what I really do. Like what I really do is help women step into their freedom. I
Yeah.
have a signature program called Sovereign, and I'll be launching that in March as well. And that program is mind blowing. It will unearth everything. It changes your life. I create a safe container for huge transformation. And I believe that I've helped 20 women now change their life, and all of them have come out of it completely different people. But
Mm.
Kick the Habit is just easy. It's an easygoing experience. I decided to launch it on January 2nd, which gives people a month to get it together. Like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
quitting smoking in a month,
Yeah.
you know, ramping up to get rid of this addiction. And it's so passive. People are smoking in their cars, after meals, on walks outside. It's
Yes.
so passive. Like alcoholism, I don't know if I could lead a program for that.
Right.
You
Right.
know, I was
That's a
married.
job for Al-Anon.
Yes. I
And
mean,
AA. Yeah.
I was married to an alcoholic for 8 years. And what I saw within that is that I'm not big enough for this. Like this is that's
It's so
job.
big.
It's
It's
so
so
big.
big.
It's so big.
But
But
it
smoking,
is a but like a lot of other kinds of self-medication and addictions, it's the same thing. It does still come back to the inner child as you were
oh, of
talking about.
course.
And it
That one's just so destructive.
right.
Um,
On
and
a
it,
larger spectrum.
oh, yeah.
And there's but even when you were saying about the smoking, like, it's so passive, and I'm glad that you're making it light, because I feel like it's like, and letting people like mentally prepare for like February 1st, like I'm all about mentally prepare for this. Like, I'm not just, we can't forcibly shake people and be like, you're done. Like, it just doesn't work like that. So
Yes.
keep it light. I agree with that. I think it's so important to keep it light where we can, in the areas where we can. Um, and then, yeah, I mean, I had a friend I have a friend who suffers from severe anxiety, is properly medicated, all that good stuff. Like she's doing really, really well, but she smoked for a really long, long time. And when she quit, she said, I realized something when I quit that I was like going outside for the cigarette. Um, but like most of the reason that I was doing it was just so I can leave the room so that
Mhm.
I could have my own space, like, and just like, tune everybody out or whatever it was, or maybe just so you needed a moment. So you're taking that moment and it's like, oh my God, like you come to that realization and it's like, really, you just needed some alone time, which is, by the way,
Yes.
oh fucking K. Like, you know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like, you also have, like, we have this pressure, like, oh, we're in a social environment. Oh, like, why aren't you talking? Or like, why aren't you hanging out with us? Why aren't you drinking with us? Da-da-da. It's like, take inventory. What
Mm.
do you actually need? Not
Mm.
what you should be doing
I
at
love
the end
that
of
you
the
just
day.
said that though, because it took me a while to realize that peer pressure does not come up in high school. It comes up in adulthood. I don't
Continually.
remember really ever being peer pressured in high school. I was all for whatever shenanigans we were going to do.
Right. Like,
It's when I'm an adult and I'm like, no, I'm tired of
I was
being
the
alone.
influencer back
Oh,
then.
yeah. And now I'm an adult and I'm like, I want to go home. I'm tired, or no, I'm not going to drink tonight. And people are like, oh, come on, you could just have one. And you're like, oh, yeah, I guess I could, and all of a sudden, you've 6 drinks deep and you can't drive and you wish you hadn't and all that stuff. So I think that I love that you just said that, because I think that really we're for me, I'm stepping into a new paradigm where we respect and honor each other's individual experience. And
Yes.
people will be like, well, I just wanted to drink with you. And I'm like, well, you are drinking and you are with me. So this attitude of me needing to drink is very bizarre, because the truth is I'm
Right.
still with you. I'm not judging you. It doesn't matter. We can both be on completely different wavelengths and still be together and still have a beautiful time.
Right.
Yeah.
And if it's like, if you have guilt for having a drink, if you're feeling shame or guilt for having a drink on your own, then, as opposed to having it be a social thing,
Hmm.
that's a whole separate discussion to be had. You know what I
Yes.
mean? It's just like another reason to take inventory and figure out what's going on.
Yes.
Not in a shameful or guilt-inducing way, just let's just become aware so that we can come home to ourselves a little bit here. It's just crazy. So
Hmm.
that's what it's all about, right? It's like that self-awareness, like fucking love yourself. Like, let's do it.
Mm. Amen,
Let's do it
sister.
all again.
Let's
Let's
do it all again.
remember. All right. Very good. I love you. A. That's A.
Yeah. Let's be best friends
B.
now.
Let's do this all the time. And I'm gonna let you go, but I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're watching or if you're listening, please do follow. If you like what you're hearing, right? Please do follow and or subscribe, because there will be more of these amazing conversations. Thank you again, Turbo. Like, this has been awesome. Tell us real quick, by the way, your website or where we can find you. I just want to make
Okay.
sure.
So you can find me on Facebook, but that's not really where I hang out. I do have a Facebook group for women who are healing from codependence, trauma, and toxic relationships. And that's essentially what it's called: Women Healing from Codependency and Toxic Relationships. You can find me there. That is a really safe container for women to talk about their feelings. I come on all the time, and it's really filled with a lot of juicy, sweet, uplifting content. It's not a place for you to come in and dump your feelings and feel like shit. It's a great place for you to feel uplifted. But mostly, I hang out on Instagram. I love Instagram. So my link is at turbos_rainbow. And that is just a really beautiful place to be. It is so beautiful. I love Instagram. It's so fun. And then I also have a website, and it's letlove-revealitself.com. And then I do have 2 programs coming up. So if you guys are interested, give me a follow, send me a DM, and I'm super available. I would love to work with any of your followers or just anybody who falls into this podcast.
Right.
And I also just want to say that you're a wonderful person. You're a wonderful interviewer. It has been a pleasure to communicate with you and have fun with you. I
Yeah.
can see that we have a lot in common.
Yeah,
And
I'm really appreciative that I get to, this is what happens, I feel, when you start to prioritize yourself and take care of yourself and be there for yourself. You start to attract the people who are going to also add value to your life.
mm,
So it's just, and you're one of those people for me 100% where I feel like I found you and I'm keeping
Yeah.
you.
I see you. Best friends now.
Right there, besties. Okay. Love it. All right. Thank you so much. I'm going to end our recording. Thank